Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are going to start for this third day, which is going to focus on the most powerful country in the world, especially after Atalanta's result in Europa Cup last night, where Ademola Lookman really performed like a god. And so thank you, Nigeria, from the bottom of my heart. But here we go. We focus on Nigeria, I was saying, a country which is not necessarily known for the strength and reliability and resilience of his power sector and the transmission system in particular, but a country which has really become a buzz with initiatives aiming at strengthening the main transmission system and the infrastructure, allowing for use of distributed renewable energy across the country to provide for diverse needs throughout the country, especially with regards to the less served parts of this country. This is really a huge challenge that Nigeria has undertaken already for a few years, and the European Union has been steadfast supporting Nigeria, being the biggest donor in terms of grants provided to Nigeria for the power sector across really a number of initiatives that will become maybe better explained during this morning session. But really, the aim of this morning session is really to portray the wealth and dynamism of the Nigerian electricity market when it comes to the strengthening of its transmission and distribution systems and the interconnection with systems that allow for more flexible use of the distributed renewable energy. It's really a huge area that we want to cover today, but here we are really mostly to allow for a proper understanding of what we face in that respect. And see, it is on this note that I would like to call to the stage my most distinguished set of panelists, starting with the Executive Director of the Rural Electrification Agency, Ms. Dori Ubo. Mrs. Dori Ubo, please join us here. I'd like to call Chris Pye from COMAP. Collis Chukwuma Obi from the World Bank Group. Tina Tebove, Commercial Lead of Schneider Electric. Matteo Salomon, the Principal Technical Advisor for Climate Change Mitigation Policy at the UNDP, New York. And last but not least, Duke Benjamin, the Head of Program of Nigeria Energy Support Program, GIZ and European Union. Very good. We are even lucky with the mics. So thank you very much to everybody. As I said, the fragility of the grids and the feasibility really of interconnecting the main grid to microgrids, but in general, all systems providing for flexible use of renewable energy in Nigeria is a particular challenge. And as I said, there is a lot of action going around it. And I would really like to structure this panel through a first round of questions that should really give you an overview of what our panelists are doing in Nigeria, followed by second round of questions with responses to previous questions and more details about what's done in particular. In the meantime, I have a plea for you. I would really plead that you start thinking about questions that you would like to ask, and maybe sharing your personal experiences with the TCN, with the TISCOs, and the plans that you may have from the floor in this area, but also asking questions just to test what we are going to present to you during this panel. And so I would really like to start with Mrs. Ubo. Mrs. Ubo, you no doubt play a huge role in the area of rural electrification, and in particular in terms of interconnecting the main grid with the distributed systems. And really, we would like to understand a bit better what's the role of the Rural Electrification Agency in all this, and what really, which market are we talking about at this stage?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very relevant and good question. Rural Electrification Agency, as our name depicts, our focus is expanding energy access to the rural communities. And in Nigeria, we have abundant access to renewable energy through solar. We have up to 427,000 megawatts that's untapped solar access that is available to Nigeria. And by our sheer size of population, we have over 210 million people, and less than 10% have access to energy through our national grid. So what we try to bring on board from Rural Electrification Agency is access to solar energy, access to renewable energy to complement what we are already doing with our national grid. And with this, we do the distribution of rural energy through interconnected mini-grids, where we interconnect with our distribution companies to the underserved areas, meaning areas where you have presence of distribution network, but that the grid system is not expanded to that area. So we put in a mini-grid to help us distribute to the underserved. But we also have other categories like the totally unserved. And for the unserved areas, we use independent isolated mini-grids to enable them to have access to energy. And you know, access to energy is really a basic right. Everybody should have access to it. So you can imagine people in the rural communities where you have, in the north alone, over 85 million people. In the southern part of Nigeria, over 47 million people live without access to energy. So what we're doing in Rural Electrification Agency is actually complementing our national grid system by doing what we're doing. And we have programs, collaborations with different agencies on how we do this. For our agencies, we collaborate with World Bank, with AFDB, UNDP, UNIDO, in different programs. And we have been able to bring onto the grid, we've been able to give access to energy to over almost 500,000 people. We have built over 150 mini-grids over the years. We have educated people. People know more about renewable energy through Rural Electrification Agency. We have programs ongoing. Right now, we have PUEs that are connected to the mini-grid. We have people who are more excited to learn more through our collaborations with our communities, through our constant training that we give to our community sustainable development plan on the ground, to continuously collaborate with communities to find the community buy-ins that we can continue to leverage on. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Thank you so much. So a lot's already been done, and even more to come. But in this context, and now I'm addressing Chris, there are issues in terms of resilience of the systems, and really in the face of climate change. And there are technological advancements that really optimize plants and operations in this respect. And yes, the question is about which technological advancements we should be looking at, and what are the ongoing examples that COMAP is actually pursuing.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Massimo. Yes, of course, there has been quite a significant advancement in terms of technology with hybrid microgrids or microgrid control. And I think it really stems from the important part with this technology is when is it ready to be deployed? So this is a maturity issue. It's also, I guess, an indication of where individual markets are in terms of their transitionary timeline. But I think if we start from the beginning and we move towards, I suppose, what can be taken advantage of as energy markets improve or systems develop, we can start from a very basic perspective. And that is that this technology can, at a very beginning point, improve the amount of renewable energy that's injected into grids. This is the first piece. There is a limitation on control systems in terms of how they can support just simply solar in terms of percentage. So generally speaking, what we see in most developed networks or as other grids are absorbing renewable energy, there's quick wins in terms of displacement of fossil fuels or diesel consumption and these sorts of things, which I think as a phase one is the low-hanging fruit. But you need technology then to mitigate the volatile nature of renewables. Renewables is not what we call a dispatchable energy source. And what I mean by this is that it's heavily reliant on renewable resources there to be able to generate energy from. So, without sun or without wind or whatever might be the case, you have a disruption, I suppose, in the supply. You can't rely on it the same way that you would from, say, the diesel source. So, technology in this regard helps smooth out the imbalances. When we get to a point where we have more or less maximised this level of solar or renewable contribution, then technology also has a next role to play. And this is like firming. So this is where we see the introduction of battery storage systems, providing networks firming, smoothing out, I guess, the intermittency of contribution from renewable sources, and then basically unlocking the full potential of renewables, pushing it from, I suppose, a plateau of 35%, which is what you can do without batteries, and moving more towards more ambitious targets of 80% or higher in your network. And this is an essential piece from a timeline perspective. The last part, I guess, in terms of full utilisation of these assets is what they can then do to improve the overall quality of the system. If you have renewable energy sources closer to the points of consumption, then basically you have a mesh network within your grid that's now able to provide improved quality outcomes for all the network off-takers. This technology can provide frequency and voltage support wherever it's deployed, which basically just improves, I guess, the resilience of the system, the reliability of the system, and ultimately you're having a system that is both far, far more effective, but also far, far more cost effective.
Thank you very much, Chris. So exactly, never forget the consumer side as well when it comes to the specific solutions which are not really embedded, which are not really connected to the grid. But so turning to the issue of investments, now we have Mr. Collins, OB from the World Bank. Is there anything that we should be mindful of when it comes to investment, in a way that really the investment in the transmission and the distributed renewable energy initiatives can really foster the resilience of the system?
All right, thank you very much. I think that's a very valid question. So because you can't talk about integrating DREs to the grid, without financing. Now, from the financing side, so the World Bank has been a key partner with the federal government of Nigeria in supporting its energy access initiative and also its energy transition plan, including the recent efforts of the federal government via the DES program to integrate DRE to the main grid for a much more climate-resilient infrastructure. And I think what we've realized over the years is that the investment amount needed for this investment is beyond the capacity of government budgets, because of fiscal constraints and other competing priorities. And private sector financing, will be key to drive the level of investments necessary for this type of solutions. Even perhaps the utilities of today in Nigeria are financially constrained, to make these investments for these resilient systems. So it means that a lot of this financing will come from the private sector. But however, a combination of country risks, project risks, and sector-level risks and barriers limits the amount of private financing available or purely commercial terms. So it means that for some time, concessional finance is necessary to crowd in private financing for this type of investment. And I think that's where the World Bank has been helpful to countries where we support, right, to try to see how the government could maximize their finance for development by providing concessional finance to crowd in private sector funding. So in essence, blended finance solution is the way forward to really drive integration of DRE to the main grid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Collins. And now we turn back to private sector. Tina from Schneider Electric Nigeria. Again, I mean, you have been here in Nigeria for some time as a group, as a company, and your experience in terms of smart grid technologies in facilitating the integration of distributed renewable energy within the main grid infrastructure and to enhance the climate resilience and energy efficiency. And if you can give us some examples. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Massimo, for the question. Talking about smart grid technology, it's inevitable to say we are in the era of smart grid technology when it comes to electrification. With a coordinated effort towards decarbonizing and decentralizing our electricity generation, this comes with a lot of benefits towards achieving our set electrification targets, but it also comes with some technical challenges on the distribution infrastructure. I'll provide a bit more context on that. So our distribution infrastructure is originally or initially designed as a one-direction power flow, and now we're having multiple energy resources like solar, storage, wind, hydro, and the list goes on, integrating into the existing distribution infrastructure. So that in itself is a technical challenge for the distribution infrastructure, meaning that it has to have like multiple feeding points, which is not the design initially. So even on the transmission as well. So to be able to have that seamless integration of DRE into the distribution network, it calls for the distribution network to be modernized, fully digitized, and you can only achieve that through smart grid technology. And this is where Schneider comes in. Schneider is a technology company. We specialize in the manufacturing of energy management infrastructure and power automation. We've designed innovative and a range of intelligent systems and solutions to be able to address smart grid technologies when it comes to electrification. And to give you some on-site examples, where we have, and even locally here in Nigeria, so starting from the equipment itself, the on-site equipment, so he was talking about battery energy storage solutions. So we're talking about advanced generation. Yeah, the battery energy storage comes in to be able to, sort of optimize the electricity that is being generated, store and discharge when required. And on a top layer to that is the power automation as well. So here you have the control systems. Cormac was given some detailed explanation on that as well. So in the control systems, for Schneider, we have the SCADA systems, and we also have advanced monitoring systems here as well to be able to fully digitize the communication on sorry, excuse me, the communication on the distribution infrastructure. And also fully making the grid a bit more flexible to be able to take in this DRE. And our solutions, what we do specifically in that specific area is to make the grid more resilient. So we call it self-healing grids. So the futures for the grids to be able to have preventive and predictive and preventive measures to be able to identify faults, fault management specifically using software services, to be able to identify faults, be able to produce those such data and be able to recommend solutions. So this in itself makes the grid a bit more resilient. And I could go on. And for Schneider, it doesn't really stop there. So we go on to the electrical distribution aspect as well, where we have the MV substations and down to the LV as well. So what we do from both the connected product all to the cloud layer, they are all smart systems, can easily communicate, to be able to have a two-way communication, which is really key because data is key. Pretty much that's what smart grid technology really is, and this you can do both on-site and off-site. And so that's one way we try to make sure that, we address smart grid technology in electrification.
Yeah, now we are getting closer, I think closer and closer to the reality of technology challenges that we face. But stepping back, and now I'm addressing Matteo Solomon from the UNDP. UNDP has a huge experience worldwide when it comes to mitigation and adaptation. And I mean, the context of Nigeria, all this wealth of knowledge that is being developed worldwide, how could that be leveraged really to help Nigeria, to partner with Nigeria when it comes to resilient and interconnected systems?
Thank you, Massimo. And maybe, if you allow me, I'm going to break a little bit protocol and ask the audience who here thinks that distributed renewable energy is the future of global energy systems. Raise your hands if you think that. Okay, a good majority of the crowd. But I think we still have to see mini-grids and distributed renewable energy system as part of the future of electricity generation and distribution. This is not only technology for rural electrification and for energy access. These are really technology that are being increasingly used in the global north as well. We are seeing that mini-grids and microgrids can increase resilience in many places. As UNDP, we have a global footprint. We work in many countries, in small island states, in middle-income countries, in least developed countries, and everywhere we see that mini-grids can play a significant role. So the challenge is how we integrate these technologies in the broader ecosystem. And again, I flew here from New York, from the JFK airport, and the JFK airport is now installing a new microgrid that will generate its own energy and supply also as well to the rest of the grid. So we hear from the private sector on different technology that can support integrating mini-grids in this broader ecosystem. And we really need to work at multiple levels to convince different stakeholders that these are modern solutions that can really provide resilience to community and to the economic system. As UNDP, we are working in 21 countries in Africa in exploring how mini-grids can form part of this ecosystem. Of course, with a strong focus on providing last-mile energy access, but also looking at medium-term and long-term solution and how in the future we can interconnect those mini-grids to the grids when the grid can arrive in different localities. In particular, with Nigeria, with DRE, we are working on how mini-grids can be combined to provide productive use of electricity, as well as connecting communities and rural households to this system, and having this virtuous cycle of the benefits of the loads that can generate the productive use of electricity to the mini-grid and support economic viability of these systems through this combination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matteo. So we can start really working on a number of microgrids in rural areas and beyond. Now, in fact, with our friends from GIZ, we've been working on a number of projects, even around microgrids, and really looking at Duke Benjamin, who's the project manager of the Nigerian Energy Support Program. I would like to maybe to hear what the Nigerian Energy Support Program has pursued in terms of a strategy in this respect, and maybe a few examples that you could give us with regards to the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Massimo. So it's been said as GIZ, a German development corporation, or rather a service provider, majorly for the German government in the area of development cooperation, and of course for the EU and so many others. Our major vision is to shape a world worth living in, and we have quite a number of topics we're working on, and in Nigeria especially, under the topic of climate and energy, where we have the Nigeria Energy Support Program as one of the programs that has been commissioned by the European Union and the German government, majorly to support Nigeria to improve the investments for renewable energy, both on and off the grid, of course, to improve also energy access, especially in the rural, underserved, and unserved areas, and as well to enable an environment in the country for this sector to drive. So coming back to your question, Massimo, let me try to say that based on our mandate and what EU and German government have sent us to do in Nigeria, about 10 years ago when we arrived, 2013, we started with the first phase of the Nigeria Energy Support Program. And back then, we started immediately laying the foundation for most of the things that we have today. In the mini-grid regulation, together with NERC, in 2016, came out of it. Since then, we've seen investments going up. We've seen investors coming in for mini-grid and distributed renewable energy. And we've gone ahead in the years as well to support with variable renewable energy integration studies. We supported with the embedded generation guideline. We supported with distribution franchising regulation. But across the years in this support, strategies and also the major way we approach the market or the work that we do as GIZ is, of course, first of all, we try to enable the environment by forming the regulation that is required. So in dialogue with Nigeria and the commissioning parties, we're able to at least start with a mini-grid regulation. Then, of course, we have to get the proof of concept. Then we went ahead to started communicating the strategies, talking to stakeholders, private sector, public sector, and of course, at the same time, building capacity for people to understand the business case. So over the years now, I think together with the Rural Education Agency and many others, like the World Bank, who has now come also in to invest more into the sector based on the foundations we laid. Together with the Rural Education Agency, we've been able, you heard it, REA mentioned 150 mini-grids already on ground and more to come. And so we started with what we call off-grid solutions, and then we moved towards interconnected mini-grids. We term it premium grids altogether because we can have it much larger and much smaller. But I truly believe what has been said, that in the world where we know that there are limitations to totally net-driven distributed power supply, it is good to have decentralized renewable energy working also, because that's the future for most of the world, and especially in a country where you have unserved and underserved, we have a very high potential to move in there. Let me just mention as an example to end, the Kano Solar project, so to say, the Kano Disco, together with the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, last year launched a project, 10 megawatt plant. We were also part of those that supported technically on that concept, on the design, to make it come to fruition. And right now, together with the REA, we have a number of interconnected mini-grid acceleration scheme projects, which are supposed to be on the grid, serving people that are, so to say, underserved on the grid, to make sure that we improve access reliability in those areas. We're working very closely with the distribution companies. We're the ones that supported with the agreements, the so-called tripartite agreement that is relevant, so to say, for the community, the investor, and the DISCO to agree on how payment and how jurisdictions' mandates are defined in such an agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if you want to go to Kano and visit, you can also call on Duke or the European Union. That's, I think, I agree, it's a wonderful example of what's being done. Now, before we go into the second round of questions, I'm looking at our participants and very happy if there was already a question to be addressed. We'll come back to your questions later, but if you felt like asking a question at this stage, feel free. And I see already two hands. We take the two hands at the and the last row. Could anybody please bring the macro? Yeah, just keep it very short.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Bolaji Ayola. I represent Sonetric. We are a solar home system distribution company. I want to direct my question to Mrs. Ubo from REA. That I heard it was mentioned that we currently have 150 mini-grids. And myself and a friend were discussing yesterday that we are supposed to have more than that. We are supposed to have thousands of mini-grids in order to bridge this gap. So I want to ask that is there anything REA is doing to attract more players in order to fast-track this gap? Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman in the C color.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Engineer Aliu Joshua from Off-Grid Limited. I'm the technical director. My question is to Teina. When she spoke, she mentioned about the advancement in technology Schneider has been doing. They've been quite doing well in the space. But then we have so many sites running on some of their equipment. And currently, those equipments have been outphased without having any support. A lot of developers here currently have mini grids running since 2016, some 2018. And they use equipment like the Schneider 8548 models, the Connect box, the SCP. Most of these equipment, we can't get support anymore from those equipment. Are we going to outphase this equipment? What are we going to do to keep this mini grid running and still get support? Because without support, how will this mini grid function? I would like to know, of course, it's one thing to advance in technology, and it's also another thing to keep existing systems running.
Yeah.
So that's my first question. Do I proceed with the second?
Okay, let's stick to two now, because we go to the second round, then we open the floor to more questions again. But in a way, both questions already go in the direction of what we had already planned for the panel. So yes, Mrs. Ubo, it's very interesting to understand the plans to move ahead from an investment, from a technological point of view. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the gentleman that brought the question forward. We are planning heavily for the future for access to energy. Just yesterday, we signed an agreement with a company who has a proven track record to deliver 250 megawatts, which is additional to what we have done. We are collaborating with more developers, people offering to bring in 5 megawatts, 25 megawatts. These are issues that are ongoing. But I'll have you know that in doing this, we need more financing. Problem of developers usually is access to finance. When you talk to financing companies, most of them want to do mega financing. They're shying away from junior financing. So we're encouraging, like the guy from World Bank said earlier, blended financing to be able to accommodate all encompassing. You cannot have expansion, as we're preaching, without funding. And that if they continue to collaborate with us to bring in the sort of financing we need, we will continue to engage developers, encourage them, build their capacity towards utilizing smart technologies, towards utilizing more software out there for site selections, for identifying PUEs. Yesterday, there was a session by World Bank on identifying PUEs in different communities. So it's not just a question of saying we need more mini-grids, but like the second question, say, how do you sustain? So you have to build in your sustainability plan. We do not want to just continue to build mini-grids that will collapse after a few years. So in having that ambition to have more mini-grids, we have to build in sustainability plan, we have to bring in financing, we have to integrate new technologies, all this together to be able to begin to even address how we achieve our goals. So in REA, we have plans to expand. We are doing so, like I said, with the addition of what we did yesterday with HOSC. We're signing an agreement. If we continue like this and have financing to back up where we're going, I think by end of 2-3 years, we'll be talking about adding over 5,000 megawatts. So we want to encourage investors out there, especially the local investors, to not just concentrate on the mega deals, on the CNIs, but the only way we can expand this is to fund junior tickets, is to encourage upcoming developers, is to encourage sustainability plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ubo. And okay, I no longer see the gentleman to ask a question to Schneider Electric. Okay, he's coming back. But yeah, we are on your question, sir. But Tina, yeah, the question is really how do we integrate new technologies into existing infrastructure, whether it is Schneider Electric, old and new, or existing infrastructure that we find already on the main grid or on the distribution systems?
Okay, thank you for the question, Massimo. But Do I have to answer his first before going to this? Okay. It's part of the same. Okay, thank you very much for the question. And when you say support, we do understand the system of supporting our customers. We use our solutions, but in terms, the support is a bit vague. So I would have really loved you to have streamlined it down to what specific area that you require support in. So Schneider Electric, we're the most global local company that you can ever find. We have a dedicated office here in Nigeria, which has a robust support services system. We have experts who are available on ground to support our partners in the deployment of our solutions. And talking about support as well is, for the particular solution that you spoke about, you were talking about the XWs, isn't it? Yes, and you did mention that those solutions had been phased out. So yes, they have been because, for Schneider, we are very invested in R&D and are coming up with the best-in-class technology. And yes, new technologies have been launched to sort of replace those technologies, and we carry our partners along as well to be able to train them on new technologies, the new trends that are coming in, for them to be able to evolve, and be able to advance the electrification they have in their site as well. So what I would say is probably, because time would really permit us here, but we really have able to, streamline and be able to understand where and when you need the support that you require. So just talking about integrating solutions into advanced solutions into existing. So for Schneider Electric, we adhere to international standards, both local and international standards. And if you know, Schneider is in over 120 countries in the world, and we manufacture the solution to these different countries, and you can understand there are different regional standards that we have to adhere to. So in Nigeria specifically, we adhere to both the local standards. An example is IEC. So we make sure that our solutions are, certified and tailor-made for the local country, for deployment in the local country. Another way is open architecture. Our solutions are quite agnostic, so they can feed into any existing systems on the site and be able to integrate quite seamlessly. And another one, again, is our solutions are quite modular, so we used a gradual phased approach to be able to address a lot of these projects. So here you can sort of size your solutions and apply them on a modular scale to achieve the set target that you want on your site. And another one is pretty much, especially on the distribution, integrating DRE into the distribution network. We also do like a pre-assessment. There's something called Power System Engineering Studies, which we do quite a lot when we have projects or DRE project. So here you have to do like an engineering assessment of the distribution network to be able to determine what are the issues with the distribution network, how can you seamlessly integrate the microgrid system into the distribution network. So these are ways that we ensure that our solutions seamlessly integrate with existing infrastructure. Thank you.
A gentleman who asked a question, then you're welcome to pursue your conversation with Tina, but I believe that she already provided a very sound technical answer to our questions. And just maybe I jump to Benjamin, to Duke Benjamin again. We heard about, the future already coming close. Okay, and but I believe that regulation is still part of the mix. Okay, and you mentioned that before, and I wanted to ask you really in terms of regulatory interventions, what we should be looking at, and in terms of concrete examples of what has been produced on the ground, Duke, where do you see really the excellence coming from, and where do you see the next frontier?
Let me try with the last part of the question, production. I didn't quite get it clear, but I will try, and then you tell me if you are satisfied with my answer, Massimo. So I think I liked the fact that the set targets, there are questions coming in also, we want to speed it up. we want to be quick, we want to deploy many thousands of mini-grids. So I think beside financing, beside enabling the environment, there are quite a lot of things you always need to put in place for the processes to run quickly. So even if you had all the money today, and licensing is a problem, for example, you would be standing in queue with 1,000 mini-grids, and in 1 year, you're still yet not done. So I think revising the existing regulations to also meet up with speed, with time, where we are, making sure that the institutions that are mandated to make sure the quality of the processes that are involved in licensing and execution of projects, those aspects also need to be put highly in place, and that's the work that we always try to do at the Nigeria Energy Support Program together with the relevant ministries. For example, we are working currently on guidelines for inspection of solar mini-grids, which we've already done with before, but also the likes of REA have said we need it a bit quicker. We need to deploy quicker with the private sector. So what can we still streamline to make such processes faster? We are currently working on updating the distribution standard performance code as well for integration of distributed renewable energy. We are working with the NEMSA currently to develop a guideline for interconnection of interconnected mini-grids. Such things and such standardization makes it possible for the private sector to deploy very quickly. So I see that as the people of Nigeria and all the supporters, we need to collectively embark on what are the major points that we need to make sure they're working so that we can scale. Because when we've also had issues in the past where the money is there, but the people cannot access it, eligibility challenges. So also capacity building in all the institutions that we currently also do. So we go to NERC, we go to NEMSA, we make sure all the standards and all those regulations that we put in place together with them, we also train the institution in being able to carry them out. I believe these are some of the things that we need to put in place alongside the structures, concessional financing, of course, private sector financing as well, making sure the banks, all the stakeholders are aware of these business cases and they can also engage in them. I think there are quite a lot of boxes that have been ticked, but in the scaling process right now, we need to look through very well what else do we need to put in place in order to be at high speed when we move.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, back to life. Thank you very much, Duke. I'm looking at the audience again, and otherwise, really, I turn to Collins from the World Bank, and the DARES, just to talk about the DARES program, and which is a great initiatives and big initiatives that that is coming on stream, and just talking about really the commitment. We saw yesterday in the press that the World Bank announced $750 million precisely in this area. The question really, through theirs and through the further financial commitment that is coming on stream, Collins, what's going to happen thanks to these interventions? Thank you.
Very much. So actually, the DARE is a very ambitious program. Because we see this as a key way to support the federal government of Nigeria to scale mini-grids, especially integrating DREs to the main grid. So the DARES is a result-based facility structured across 3 components. So we're going to be supporting mini-grids, standalone solar systems, which include solar home systems and PUEs. And there's going to be some funding earmarked for technical assistance. And this technical assistance is meant to strengthen the capacity of institutions and also strengthen their processes to make them much more efficient. There's going to be some support for pipeline building. So because we believe that availability of well-prepared projects is important to attract the necessary blended finance necessary to deliver this project. Also, there's going to be some components to support the state governments. So even as they transition to their new role, to their new role from the Electricity Act. So we feel that from the DES project, in terms of DRE's integration to the main grid, there's a special envelope for that. Over $127 million have been allocated for that particular aspect to integrate DREs to the main grid. And the way it's going to be delivered is going to be like a CAPEX-based grant delivered to close the viability gap for the private sector and also enable the end users afford this solution, the energy service from these systems. And in terms of the type of size we're looking at, so of course we're going to be supporting traditional projects, up to 1 megawatt. So, but the good thing about the DES project is that we're going to be supporting larger projects, because as DRE systems, get closer to peri-urban and urban locations, demand increases. So we should be able to support larger systems, within the embedded generation and franchising window. I think those are, the ways we're trying to also support that ecosystem. Thank you.
Very promising, Collins, but I see the nexus of moving up, scaling up, and really adapting technologies and adapting regulation. So, because I believe that really the relationship with TCN, with the DISCOs, is going to be quite critical, also in light of the new law that also empowers states in Nigeria to adopt the relevant legislation at state level to favor this type of operations. And talking about technologies, again, we are still mindful of the impact of climate change and the issues of resilience and reliability of the systems. And we really need innovation from private sector, as Tina already commented before, but really turning to come up to Chris, there is an increasing need of smart energy control systems for proper energy management, demand response, and grid stability. And where do you see really the answer and the opportunities coming from?
Thanks for the question, Massimo. I think we need to unpack this a little bit further, because I think when we start talking about demand response and stability services and these sorts of things, these are common terms that we bring across from more established networks or markets, Western markets, where there is a market mechanism for these technologies to exist. And I suppose maybe going off on a tangent, because I think the theme, especially from some of the feedback from the other speakers, is that it's actually quite important to say that at this stage, I don't think the market is there to take advantage of these technologies yet. And why is that? Well, we've spoken about, and a number of speakers have spoken about, how do we encourage investment? How do we scale up these investments? How do we move towards more electrification of these projects? But I think the answers that we're coming up with, or that we're pushing forward here, are really around the demand side, really about trying to service the immediate needs, to lower the cost, to provide energy to specific off-takers. And this is fine, but when we talk about the returns on this investment, we're talking about periods of somewhere between 5 to maybe 8 years if there's storage involved. So 5 years for solar, 8 years for storage. And this is completely fine when we're using mechanisms like blended finance, and the financing is coming from organisations like World Bank, because I think there's a patience and there's a tolerance for this rate of return. But if we really want to supercharge the investment in Nigeria, then we also need to encourage or have a market that encourages private finance and equity as well. And then we really have to think about what are the incentives to bring this capital into the country. And it really comes back to underlying market conditions. So rather than just simply offsetting costs, we have to really unlock the full potential of microgrid technology, and that is generating revenue off the assets themselves. So this is this concept of demand response and ancillary market participation and these sorts of things. But what it actually means is that the role now for this technology also has to have a broader impact on the generation side of the country. It needs to compete head-to-head with the incumbent energy sources and be able to generate revenue or return on its investment. And I think when you compare these two aspects together, then you encourage further investment. It's a very competitive market at the moment globally for renewable assets. And Nigeria, whilst it has its domestic, targets, if it wants to get to this bringing in of skills, bringing in of technical capabilities, this will be almost like a rush, I guess, if you can get the underlying market conditions set. So rather than maybe talking about the microgrid smart technology, I think this is maybe a point to sort of highlight because I think it's quite relevant. The second part maybe that I'd like to talk about too is like the role that technology businesses have to play here. And as I see it, there's probably three roles. The reason why I'm here is that, we have a role for key decision makers, key stakeholders in markets, an obligation to provide some thought leadership in this space. We see it from a hands-on perspective. We obviously have to have a perception of where the market is going so that we can tailor our technologies to solve relevant market problems, not just today, but into the future. So by participating in events like these and others, we have a role immediately to help customers that are on the ground implementing hybrid microgrid technologies, not only just giving them the technology itself, but allowing them, helping them in terms of upskilling, helping them understand, how these systems work. And then we have a future role to the market itself, and that is to, provide training and understanding of, how they can get the best use of these assets. So I think if we look at smart energy systems overall, I would say there's definitely a strong role, a piece for them to unlock the true value of the asset, but the market condition has to be there for them to take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the reminder, Chris. Yes, I mean, there cannot be a perfect microgrid in an environment which is still developing. I mean, everything has to go together hand in hand, and the incentives must come from all sectors of our energy and electricity system. And I think, Chris, this is I think in Nigeria, authorities and the sectors involved are aware of that. But I also agree with you that as a private sector, let's say cluster, more could be done in marking the way forward, especially, as you said, when it comes to upscaling. Okay, if we want to upscale, if we want to remain competitive, there are things that need to be done at all levels. So thank you very much for the reminder. And just, Matteo, you already gave us some thought-provoking remarks before. I thought that by now I would just ask you to illustrate what's on ground from the UNDP. What are you doing? Also, in terms of experiences in Nigeria, and maybe a question about how do you assess really the socioeconomic impact of a better integrated system, not only in terms of resilience, but also in terms of really benefits, in terms of SDGs, in terms of sustainable development goals and welfare in the country. as you are the expert in the in the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Massimo. So, yeah, I'll bring the perspective from the last point of your question on how do we assess impact, and also coming back at the perspective that as UNDP we are really working on energy as energy for development, energy for growth. Energy is a key enabler to achieve multiple SDGs, poverty reduction, climate change, and of course SDG 7 in terms of access to energy and energy transition and gender. So there are multiple impacts that we can achieve through the promotion of solution as mini-grid, and we're seeing really mini-grid as the least cost option to achieve these impacts in a number of settings and communities and countries. So we think about half of the population without access now can be provided access through technologies such as mini-grids. So I mentioned we are working with the Africa Mini-Grid program across 21 countries in the region. Nigeria is one of the first countries when we started implementing the Africa Mini-Grid program. So we are really seeing Nigeria in the driving seat on this topic and becoming a leader in the region. So congratulations again to Nigeria for that. And sharing experiences for other countries in Africa. And we are working across different topics, supporting countries looking at different delivery mechanisms for mini-grid deployment, different model involving both the public sector and the private sector, and the ranges of engagement that can happen in public-private partnership. Working on digitalization, which is also a key topic in terms of gathering data and how we can really harness information on the pilots we are doing. And finally, on productive use of electricity, as I mentioned, as a key economic enabler for mini-grids to improve their economic viability. So the connection between digitalization, productive use of electricity, and impact measurement is really essential, and how we can harness this data is going to be a big challenge of REA and the federal government and also the state's government in really doing data-driven approach. And we are working closely together on that, on how we can set national platforms to harness different data streams from all the energy access interventions in the country. And hopefully that can help really target the different level of subsidies that are required to still make mini-grids viable. We have to acknowledge that everywhere in the world, electrification has required public investment, so we really need to look at those public-private partnerships, but data-driven intervention can also really help targeting those supports where it's most needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matteo. Thank you so much to all our panelists. I think that we all put them under pressure and they deserve a sound round of applause. Thank you so much. But as we really performed pretty well, even in terms of time, and we still have a few minutes, I'm sure that there are questions from the audience, and it will be actually important to get the questions from the audience. I don't know who's helping with the mic. There's already a gentleman on the first row. And ladies, please do not be shy, because you use as much power, energy as men. And I'm sure that you have as much to contribute to this debate. But please.
Thank you. My name is Engineer Binagwo. We are a mini-grid developer in Nigeria here. I want to ask, what is the situation with grid scale projects in this fair? Like utility scale, can we build under the NEP area project or program? Or can investors onboard such scale of projects? Because from what we see in other sectors, like water system, a lot of investment, a lot of money have been committed, and yet in Nigeria today, we don't have potable water for the people to drink. The silos of, in my house, I put a small borehole with different levels of impurity across the country that have not addressed the poor water problem. So my fear is doing these small mini grids, which 10 years down the line of operation, those communities will evolve to town. And some people want to set up industry, which is beyond the capacity of that mini grid. Is it not better we think the direction of utility scale to solve this problem once and for all, and that will also give us a stepping stone in bridging the energy gap problem in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other questions? Yeah. The Blue Sea Man.
Thank you once more for the opportunity. Now, since the beginning of this program, we've been talking about interconnected mini-grid, which is a way of serving the underserved areas. Now, we have 11 DISCOs, distribution companies here in Nigeria, and I've not seen one of them in this house. Neither have any of them appeared before the panelists. We might be thinking so much about the DRE, and in carrying the DISCOs along, they might not be aware of all what is going on in the eco space. So my question is to the EAIF. What is the legal framework on ground to allow developers approach these DISCOs easily to see how potential areas that are underserved, that requires these grids, we can easily synergize with them? If the REA has prepared those frameworks, it will be easier for us to gain such penetrations easily.
Oh, okay. Very pertinent question. So I don't know, the first question, is there any taker? Yeah, please, World Bank, and yeah, Doris, yeah.
You want to go first, or should I go? Right. To the question regarding legal framework. Legal framework is definitely in place. And the NERC, the NERC department of the power sector, handles everything that has to do with DISCOs. And developers are aware of that. So if you need if you have any interconnectivity problem, maybe by interconnecting your mini grid into any DISCO in that particular area where your presence are, you know to interface with NERC. NERC has the legal capacity to act on behalf of REA and on behalf of any other agency in the power sector. So we are not lacking there. But to answer why DISCOs are not here, the DISCOs are receiving enough attention through other agencies. And that is why REA is present here to talk about only renewable energy access to expanding energy, especially to rural areas. Most of the services that are given by DISCOs or through our national grid usually go to the urban areas and the peri-urban, leaving the rural areas as if they're not part of this society. So we're finally opening that space up, opening the investment opportunities in the rural communities up. And like the gentleman in front talked about access to portable energy is part of our scale-up, is part of our future plan to have DRE systems connecting water system in our rural, I keep stressing rural communities, because we don't want them to continuously remain rural. It is not a crime to live in the villages. So having access to basic human amenities is their right. And that is why we keep stressing rural areas. So for DISCO problems or for legal framework, I can assure you that we're not lacking. It is all present. Please contact the NERC, and they will provide you for whatever information you need.
Thank you. I also wanted to add to that with at least how we are working together with the REA and NERC and others, and making sure that developers can direct their questions first to the discourse. If it doesn't work, then they can run through us. But together with the Ministry of Power and the REA in also the try to scale up, one thing I had not mentioned all this while is that we have set up, because I heard an info about data being mentioned. So the Ministry of Power has already, since almost 2 years, launched a data-driven electrification platform, where the transmission grid is overlaid with the distribution grid of about 22 countries, now counting going, and all the settlements across the country. And with that platform, one is able to extrapolate where potential viable mini-grids are based on community settlements, how far they are from the grid. We have, together with the Ministry of Power, identified quite a number of potential sites, around 900, both on the grid and off the grid. And we've gone ahead to go to those 900 sites to do site assessment on ground, telling you how many productive users, giving you socioeconomic information about the kind of network that is there, road access, market days, how many barbers are there, how many religious objects are there. So basically, there is a potential already if you want to immediately deploy in Nigeria. And that's why we are saying that we are working at the same time on all the bottlenecks, other ones that are in the process, which is the licensing and, of course, being able, if you want to work on a grid of a distribution company, being able to access them. So we've done, of course, a lot of work with the discourse, but we all know, I think, the past 1 year, there were quite a lot of changes in the management of discourse, and there has been a little bit of a lag in communication. But what we've done with the current running projects is also, once the developer highlights that there is a challenge, we run it through the REA and NERC, and then an information goes directly to the distribution company, and then you get a response immediately. Thank you.
Benjamin, yes.
Okay.
Collins, please.
Okay, so just to quickly add to that, in the preparation for the DES project, so we worked closely with the REA to engage the distribution companies, and it's been an overwhelming response from the discos, even though they are not here, but I believe maybe some of them will are joining online for this event, and that response has been overwhelming. So as I date, we have over 600 sites submitted by the distribution companies, 10 of the 11 distribution companies in Nigeria, to present, to the team for technical assessment in respect of the DES project. So the point is there's significant opportunity for the private sector to bring in their investments and work with the discos. And in terms of the regulatory framework, NEC has been supportive in terms of a recently issued mini-grid regulation that provides that framework on how utilities will work with developers and also the communities where these DRE systems will be deployed. Thank you.
Sorry, Massimo, I just want to add one clause here. You should see me not talking about DES so much is because World Bank is concentrating on DES, and DES program is actually REA program. So it wouldn't make sense for me to repeat what he has said. We work in conjunction with World Bank, with UNDP, with GIZ. So sometimes some of the questions crystallizes all our answers, and if they have mentioned something, there's no point me mentioning it again. So when you hear World Bank talk about DES program, it is an REA program because REA interfaces with the communities through either NEP, which is now metamorphosing into DES, or through REF, which is my department. We implement what he was talking about, the IMAS project, the African mini-grid program. So all of us here work hand in hand. We utilize software manufactured by Schneider, so it's like one big family up here. So I try to shy away from repeating what has been said. The only thing I have to add is a sustainability plan where we carry the communities along by training them, putting what we call renewable energy users cooperative society, where the locals in each community are inculcated. They work with our zonal offices. They are like the first responders to any problem on any mini-grid, like what the gentleman was talking about. How do we ensure that these mini-grids will work after 4 or 5 years? So all this is in the pipeline. It's a part of our plan. We're already executing in some communities, and we plan, it's part of our scaling up to ensure that the huge investment that we're bringing into the renewable energy system will not collapse after a few years. We intend to sustain it and continue capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I think that we started a bit late. We'd like to hear voices, but unfortunately, okay, well, let's make an exception just because it's a lady and we need to be balanced in the room, but very quickly.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. My name is Chine Ajayi, and Managing Associate and Team Leader of the Power Infrastructure Practice at Olani Wajayi. So what I just wanted to make a comment actually on the points on framework for interconnected mini-grids. So just recently, like he actually spoke from the mini-grid regulation, there's this particular provision that actually allows private investors to interact with discos, and require their consent, particularly for interconnected mini-grids. And if consent is not given within 15 days, is deemed approved. This is actually a very new innovation that can be leveraged upon for private investors in the space, and a couple of other provisions that are investor friendly. So I think it's important to look at that regulation and see what's there. And in response to the first question, apologies, I would like to add that most of these communities, from my experience, are unable to pay for large mini-grids that are beyond their capacity. So I would advise in response to his question, you can have smaller mini-grids that meet the needs of the community. Then as your community begins to expand and grow, then you can always upscale to meet their need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. And big thanks to all the participants. I think that we really achieved our goal, which was to show the vibrancy of the Nigerian market and the awareness of the big challenges and the big opportunities that we have in developing climate resilient and prosperous system in Nigeria. I would like to thank all the partners, all the speakers and panelists, and of course, all of you who followed us so carefully. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Please, I beg everyone to come back to the room for an announcement, please. Please sit down, please. Please come back again to the room. Can we please come back to the room for just 5 minutes? I will be done. And please have your seat. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is an announcement we wanted to do after the break, but we thought that it would be good to do it now, so you have more time for other sessions. And so that's why we want you to please sit down, and we will not take your time. Not more than 5-6 minutes will be done. Thank you very much. So I welcome my colleague from the DRE Yes?
Good morning, everyone. I will not take too long because I'm standing between you and the coffee break. But yes, I just wanted to announce the EU and ARE were together launching the market brief and impact report for Nigeria. It's been a report that we've developed in a consultative process with ARE members throughout the last year or so, where we've had different consultations and discussions on what should be industry action in Nigeria and what should be action and market interventions of the EU to support DRE development in the country. The report, you can download it here. You have the QR code. By the way, you can also go to the EU and ARE booth to get a copy. It looks at multiple parts of the market. Obviously, it looks at the current situation for DRE. It also looks at the supply side, the demand side of the market, policy interventions, access to finance, among other things. On the supply side, I think the encouraging news is that we have more than 100 companies active in the DRE market in Nigeria. Huge market opportunity both for SHS, as we know, and for mini-grids. We heard in the last session that discoms are also open to work with mini-grid developers, which is a huge, huge deal. That's not something we see in other markets. So overall, very large market opportunity on the supply side, already a good amount of companies active in the market. Of course, we encourage any of those companies to come and speak with ARE about how we can collaborate on the industry side. In terms of market challenges, the report identifies quality of products as one open issue we need to address. So standards, of course, limited local manufacturing capacity as well, payment collection issues, and skilled labor as a key challenge as well. On the demand side, well, we've been through this in a couple of the sessions already, but Nigeria is the largest DRE market opportunity. We have 15 million people best served by mini-grids or more, 6 million best served by solar home systems. And also on the grid, let's say weak grid side, what was discussed in the previous session, there is an amazing opportunity for diesel replacement and interconnected mini-grids, as well as CNI. We like numbers, so that you'll see a lot of numbers on these slides and in the report. But essentially, some of the key ones are we have 22 million diesel generators in Nigeria, 42 gigawatts, more or less. I mean, it's a difficult estimate to make, but there are really a lot of diesel generators in Nigeria, which sums up to 14 billion spent on diesel annually in the country. So a huge replacement opportunity as well. A little announcement of a later announcement as well on this. We are later today also going to announce an MOU of our collaboration with the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises of Nigeria, exactly to power SMEs with clean energy and replace diesel. So stay tuned on that. It's at 3 p.m. here in the room as well. The main challenges addressed by the report are related to macroeconomics. So there's inflation, cost of capital, incomes, etc., and consumer awareness. So that's also something we will work on. In terms of the policy side, well, I will not delve into the details. There's a very detailed analysis in the report and overview in a table, so you can see that for yourself. On the access to finance side, though, I think a couple of the key numbers here are worth highlighting. So on the standalone system front, there was $227 million mobilized in the last 5 years, 55% of which was development finance and government funded. So actually a significant proportion private sector funding in especially the standalone market. In the mini-grid space, the report finds that the majority of the what has catalyzed the market is the RBF and grant schemes, for example, through the NEP. And again here, key challenges are forex, fluctuating currencies, and limited patient capital, as has been discussed in a lot of the sessions. So in terms of the availability of the report, as said, you can download it on the ARE website, ruralelect.org, or you can go directly to our exhibition stand and see it there. Then when it comes to what's the outcome of it in terms of action, so as you know, Team Europe has multiple key instruments available for the market. On the one hand, you have Electrify directly funding projects and companies. Already there's a 30 million euro Electrify window in the country. It's already deployed a significant amount of funding. For example, a 4.5 million euro investment in Okra Solar, one of ARE's members. There have always also been investments in PowerGen, Nithio, Arnergy, and a few others. And the Electrify team is also here at the event to meet you and speak about how you can collaborate. Electrify looks into captive power, mini-grids, and SHS, by the way. And then you have the Get Invest window. So Get Invest is the TA part, so on mobilizing access to finance. Get Invest is really strongly represented here as well. So if you need support on finance access advisory, go to the Get Invest team. There's multiple tiers of support. So there's the finance readiness support for early stage companies, finance catalyst for medium and later stage, and EdgeFin for domestic finance institutions. And then, of course, ARE is also available at any time to discuss industry support and viewpoints. Get Invest is also going to launch a specific Nigeria window in the very near future, so stay tuned on that announcement as well. It will be announced quite imminently, so stay tuned on the ARE and Get Invest websites for the details of the same, or you can come to us and discuss. That's it from my side. Yeah, that's it. We can go to the coffee break directly, I guess. Looking forward to collaborate more. Thank you.